Good morning. I'm Michael Kovnat, and this is the Next Big Idea Daily, your daily dose of smart, actionable insights from the best nonfiction. To get ideas like these right in your inbox, sign up for our free daily newsletter using the link in the episode notes. Now, here's a personal question for you. How many friends do you have? I mean, really good friends. For many, friendships come easily up through our 20s, but a lot of us struggle to keep those friendships alive as careers, romance, and kids take over. And making new friends as an adult can be downright impossible. But it shouldn't be that way because friendship is vitally important to happiness and longevity, and it doesn't have to be that way since there are concrete actions you can take to cultivate friendship at whatever stage of life you're in. Marisa Franco is a psychologist, a professor at the University of Maryland, and the author of the 2022 instant New York Times bestseller, Platonic: How the Science of Attachment Can Help You Make and Keep Friends. Marisa will join us with the big ideas from her book right after this break.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar, zero patience for slow walkers, those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night, have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, my name is Dr. Marisa G. Franco, and I am a professor, speaker, psychologist, and author of the book, Platonic: How the Science of Attachment Can Help You Make and Keep Friends. And I'm here to help you make friends. I'm going to share 5 key insights from my book. Insight number 1, friendships don't happen organically. You have to initiate. I think a lot of us rely on this idea that friendships happen organically because when we were kids, they did. And that's because, according to sociologist Rebecca Adams, friendships happen more organically when we have continuous, unplanned interaction and shared vulnerability. In other words, we tend to see each other every day and start to let our guard down. So you can see how we have this as kids in recess, during lunch, during gym, for example. But as adults, we just don't inhabit those same environments. I know we go to work and we might see our colleagues every day, but that doesn't mean that we have shared vulnerability. We often don't really let our guard down around our colleagues. And one study actually found that the more time we spend with each other at work, the less close we feel. So what does that suggest? Basically, that you're going to have to make more of an effort to make friends as an adult than you're used to. This might look like telling someone who you really like, "Hey, it's been such a pleasure to connect with you. Would you be open to exchanging contact information so that we can connect further?" This will really pay off. According to one study, people that thought friendship was something that happened without effort were more lonely 5 years later. Whereas people that saw friendship as something that happened based on effort were less lonely 5 years later. So you're going to have to go out there and try. Insight number 2. People are less likely to reject you than you think they are. Our brain has an inbuilt negativity bias. Basically, we learn from negative information much more than we do from positive information. So, for example, I have this friend and she told me that in 6th grade, one of her friends told her, "None of us like you." And from then on, she's never initiated interactions with friends again. And this is wild because I imagine there's a lot of instances since then where people have wanted to be her friend, myself included, and have wanted her to initiate more. But because she learned from that one instance of rejection, she then assumed from then on everybody would reject her. And of course, this wasn't true. Many people were willing to be her friend. The science behind this is based on a study on a phenomenon called the liking gap. Researchers basically had strangers interact and then asked them, how much do you like one another? What they found was that these strangers that interacted, underestimated how liked they were by the other person. And the more self-critical these folks were, the more pronounced this liking gap was. So often we take our distorted, insecure thoughts as evidence of truth, when in fact they tend to distort the truth. And so this is something that I took to heart recently. I went on a trip to Mexico City, and I knew, people are less likely to reject me than I think. And this was really helpful because it was a solo trip for me. So I figured I'd have to connect with people, otherwise I'd end up really lonely. So I was at a coffee shop, and I noticed someone speaking American English. And I just sort of said to him, where are you from? And we got to talking. And then I asked him to exchange contact information. I said, oh, it was so great talking to you. I'd love to stay connected. And then I invited him that night to a language exchange group that I was intending to go to for meetup.com. And that's how I made friends while traveling solo abroad. I initiated, and I remembered that people are less likely to reject me than I think. Big idea number 3. If you want to make friends, you're going to have to assume that people like you. I know this is hard. Again, our brain tends to assume the opposite because of its negativity bias. Thank you, brain. We know you're just trying to help us survive, but sometimes you get a little bit in the way. Research finds that people that are high in rejection sensitivity, who tend to project that they're going to be rejected onto ambiguous circumstances, like, let's say, a friend didn't sit next to them or didn't respond to their text right away, what happens is these rejection-sensitive people tend to reject others. They become cold, they become withdrawn because of the rejection they think they're enduring. And then after they reject others, people reject them back. Whereas researchers found when they sort of lied to people and told them, hey, you're going to go into this group, and based on your personality profile, we actually assume that you're going to get along with these people and that they're going to like you. They found that telling people this, even though it was a lie, actually made them warmer, friendlier, and more open. This is a phenomenon called the acceptance prophecy. When we assume people like us, it triggers a set of behaviors that actually makes this more likely to be true. When we assume people will reject us, this actually triggers a set of behaviors that again makes this more likely to be true. So if you want to make friends, just remember, people are less likely to reject you than you think, and you have to assume that people like you. Big idea number 4. Find a group that meets repeatedly over time in order to make friends. This is really a life-changing tip that is part of what motivated me to write my book, Platonic. I was feeling grief after some bad breakups in my young 20s. So I met up with my friend Heather, and I was like, I think what would really help me heal is if we maybe started this wellness group with our friends. We can meet up each week, meditate, cook, do yoga, and Heather said yes, and that was the start of our wellness group. And every week we met up and we practiced wellness together. And it felt transformative to me. And the most healing thing of all, even more so than the meditating, the cooking, and the yoga, was just being around friends, having a regular sense of community. And you can start your own group like this to find something repeated over time that'll help generate community, or you can just think of what are you interested in and how do you engage in that thing in community with other people. So if you like learning languages, don't take a language workshop, take a language class. Or if you like improv, again, don't take an improv workshop, take an improv class so that you'll see people repeatedly over time. And according to the science, when we see people repeatedly over time, it really helps us create connection. So for example, these researchers basically plopped random women into a large psychology lecture for varying numbers of classes, from none of the classes to most of the classes. At the end of the semester, they asked the students in the class, do you remember any of these women? And the students were like, no. But they also asked the students, how much do you like each of these women? And their results were shocking. The students, even though they didn't remember any of the women, reported liking the woman that had shown up to the most classes 20% more than the woman that had not shown up to any classes. And because the students didn't even remember any of the women, this suggests that the mere exposure effect happens completely unconsciously. We simply come to like people more when we see them over and over again, even if we don't engage with them. And you can see how this makes sense from an evolutionary perspective, right? If we see someone repeatedly and they don't pose a threat, our brain is like, chill. You can trust them. You can become friends with them. But what that also means is that we should expect that when we're early on in interacting with someone, when we first meet up with a new friend, it's going to be awkward at first. Our brain is set to weary mode when interacting with people that we don't know too well. We should trust that over time, we're going to feel more comfortable instead of leaving in the first time we meet up because we're sort of like, hey, I'm not feeling the spark of connection, so it's over. This is advice that I wish my younger college self had, because I remember going to a club literally one time, feeling like nobody talked to me, and quitting after one time. And I now realize that if you really want to create connections, you have to keep showing up repeatedly. Big idea number 5. If you want to make friends, make other people feel like they belong. When I was in college, I thought to be an attractive friend to other people, I had to be smart, funny, charismatic, insightful. So that was my plan for making friends. I'll just be magnetizing, and people will flock to me. Since I've studied the science of friendship and connection, I now realize that people much prefer someone that makes them feel valued and loved than they do someone who is particularly entertaining or charismatic. In fact, people reported that the number one quality that they looked for in a friend was someone who made them feel valued. According to a theory called risk regulation theory, we decide how much to invest in a relationship based on our discernment of our likelihood of being rejected. So when people make us feel like they belong, they tell us, you're not going to be rejected here. And then we feel safer to invest in the relationship. That's why the people that are best at making friends are actually really good at making other people feel valued and comfortable. Think Oprah Winfrey, for example.
Thank you, Marisa. Okay, listeners, you can get yourself a copy of Platonic using the link in the episode notes. And go to nextbigideaclub.com to find out about our hardback subscription club, where we send you the best new nonfiction books right to your door, as selected by our curators, Malcolm Gladwell, Adam Grant, Susan Cain, and Daniel Pink. And you can use the code DAILY to get a 20% discount. So go to nextbigideaclub.com and use the code DAILY. That does it for us this week. These episodes were written by me, Michael Kovnat, and edited by Caleb Bissinger. We'll see you Monday.